CRL Rights Commission investigation into the commercialization of religion and the abuse of the people's belief system has led to many people, especially women, coming forth to lay complaints at the Commission about the cult-like practices that they experience at some of these churches. For that reason, the CRL Rights Commission this morning explored further the phenomena of cult-like churches versus your true churches. We talk about this seminar now with Professor David Mosoma. He's the chairperson of the CRL Commission. Prof, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us here on the SABC News channel.
And good afternoon to you and your viewers.
Now, Prof, firstly, just tell us, how widespread is this culture of cult in the country?
In fact, we had an opportunity to get experts drawn from different disciplines in our country to help us understand the widespread of this phenomena and the practices that are taking place in these cult-like churches. In fact, we're told that there's a deep widespread of this, and because of the hope they think they are trying to address, especially in times of uncertainty, COVID-19, in fact, compounded the situation because people are looking for hope. And these are the people who often portray themselves as the giver of hope, that without them, there is no salvation. They too are able to speak to the highest power above. So the experts were able to help us understand this. Let me indicate that the purpose of the seminar was really to answer a few questions. One was what are the characteristics of the cult-like churches? And second, what attracts people to these churches? And thirdly, from their perspectives, how do cult-like churches operate in South Africa? And how vast this phenomena is? And of course, there's a problem. And what can we do to address this phenomena in our country? Given the propensity of the problem, these churches in the country, they operate like any other church. But there are certain things that they introduce where people get manipulated. They are not allowed to think for themselves. Once you enter the cult, you have to obey the rules or the laws created, and you have to honor the leader. The leader is the only single authority, and they use cohesive methods to make sure they keep you in line in these institutions. And of course, one of the dimensions which we found, which is very staggering, is the fact that they use virgins almost every 2 weeks to ensure that they gain more power. And they use women whose fluid they use also as one way of gunning for power or gathering power. So in a sense, these institutions are used even far worse than what we call gender-based violence, the abuse of women and children. And of course, even young men, they get sodomized in these kinds of environment. So it's widespread. What we have agreed is to deepen our insight in terms of research before we come up with what we call interventionist strategies. Because unless we do that, this phenomena will continue in our country.
But the question here, Prof, is, does the Commission not have any strategies in place now? Because the issue of church-like cults is not necessarily new. One can mention one in the Eastern Cape, the Seven Angels Ministry, where the Commission was also a bit involved in this one. So are you saying that as it is now, you don't have any strategies as to how to deal with this phenomena going forward?
Remember that one of the critical issues we must consider is that in terms of the Constitution, the freedom of religion is protected. Now, until you have a criminal charge, you can observe this phenomenon and see it happening and report it to the law enforcement agencies. It's incumbent upon them to arrest, and they must have a case to be able to defend this. So when we talk about strategy, we talk about what we call jurisprudence on how best to make sure that we have legal recourse to be able to address these issues. I mean, for instance, women come to us and of course they report about being raped in churches. We report to law enforcement agencies because we can't go and arrest these people. So we make sure that in terms of our relationship and in terms of what the Act provides for us is to make sure that we escalate these things to the law enforcement agencies whose task it is and power are empowered to arrest and prosecute.
And it brings me to my next question. Obviously, you cannot arrest all these perpetrators. What can the Commission do? Because in previous occasions, we've heard people saying that the CRL Commission is just a toothless body. What is it that you can do and that you cannot do?
Well, we are not a toothless body. We are, in terms of the Act, is to promote and protect the rights of cultural, religious, and linguistic communities. And addition to that is that we investigate, we educate. I think the primary role is to educate, which is why in the CRL, we have the department or section that deals with education to make people aware about these challenges. Part of why we have this seminar is to be able to adduce more information, which will make people aware by way of being identified what are the elements that constitute what is called a cult-like church, so that they can avoid it at all costs. If they do join, they must know the consequences thereof.
So whereabout in the country, Prof, have you, I know you've mentioned that you'll be doing some research on this issue, but are you able to tell us whereabout in the country is this cult-like churches arrive? Because I remember that some time back, your predecessor, Mkwanasi Kaluva, said that there were more churches like your Seven Angels Ministry in the Eastern Cape, saying that they were also monitoring a few in Limpopo. So is it all over the country, or do you have provinces where this is more rife than others?
The problem is widespread. Some of them actually mimic the ordinary church. And part of why you see an avalanche or a group of people supporting this or the next church. Some of the experts are saying these things are attributed precisely to the strategies that cult-like churches use to mobilize, to recruit members, to use young people, professionals, family members, and so forth, which is why they try to portray themselves as the giver of hope and care to those who have been marginalized, to those who have been impoverished. So they come to us, we'll be able to help you, even through the process of becoming wealthy, if all at all. But all of these things are in the main not true. It's one way of keeping the cult intact under the authoritarian rule.
All right, this is quite an interesting one, Prof, but we have to leave it at this due to time constraints. We thank you so much for taking the time. We'll surely have you over again next time to deliberate further on this issue. Thank you so much.